Hello folks, Canada City Preppers. Today I'm going to be talking about the difference between living off the grid and being a prepper. You know, if you're a living off the grid person or a prepper, both of the lifestyles are linked by their focus on self-sufficiency, but there are some key differences between when it comes to motivation, food storage, water storage, shelter, skills, off-the-grid living, security, medical needs, and lifestyle. Let's go through this, and then you can see where you fit into the spectrum. First of all, it's motivation. That's the first thing. One way to view the difference between living off the grid and preppers is through motivation. What caused you to pursue a more self-sufficient lifestyle? As living off the grid, you're gonna unplug yourself from the system. You don't want to pay more services anymore. You know, everything comes to a point that you gotta see, okay, I'm not gonna depend on anyone else. I'm gonna be totally independent. Then preppers is a different thing. Preppers just want to be prepared for the future while they're living on the system with the grid. So let's go through it. Motivation is one of the things that I always say to people. You have to find a reason to become a prepper or a person who want to live off the grid. So for many preppers, it's the fear of a cataclysm event, either caused by man or by nature, that could put them and their family in life-threatening situations. Preppers always plan ahead for breakdowns of traditional services that provide food, water, shelter, electrical power, and security. Preppers hope to be self-reliant in the event of short-term or prolonged emergency situations. Although living off the grid people might store food and supplies in a similar way as many preppers, but they are motivated by desire to live a more traditional self-sustainable lifestyle. You know, living off the grid hope to be self-sufficient in an ongoing basis, but they want to live far away from the system. We as preppers, we live in the system, being ready to leave the system, which is different. So when it comes to food storage, another way to compare and contrast living off the grid with preppers is with food storage. While both groups storage food, they go about it differently. Some with a pure prepping mentality focus on maintaining a certain amount of inventory and on how long the inventory will keep their family healthy. Some preppers have enough food and water stockpiled for 30 days, while others have enough to last for more than a year. Preppers purchase this food supply in bulk quantities from online or brick-owned retailers. Since living off the grid are seeking sustainability on a long-term basis, they grow or raise much of their food. Therefore, they store enough food as keep their families fed from harvest to harvest, and to hold them over in the event of a poor or damaged harvest. Most living off the grid people prefer to store their own food rather than pre-packaged or commercially canned food. So basically they have less than a year because it goes from harvest to harvest. And not always you're going to have a balance of food, you know, because remember, it depends what you're farming. If it's in Canada or US, depending on the season. So it's a different story when it comes to harvest your own food, grow your own food. Water storage. Most of the preppers store water. They also focus on ways to filter and purify water in the event of disaster. Some preppers have wells with manual pumps and in places with the water catchment system. You know, when you catch the rain or you divert some water from a local creek, etc. Living off the grid people, generally, they don't store large supplies of water. Most of them try to have a well or spring on the property, and must have a system for collecting rainwater for the gardeners and the animals. So it's basically like preppers, but the storage kind of like goes differently, not like us. Shelter. When it comes to shelter, Pure preppers like us have a shelter located in the country that can they can retreat in times of emergency. Defensibility is considered one of the constructions and location of these structures. So you always think about defending and hiding yourself. Although some preppers live at these shelters, they usually tend to be more like hunting cabins or weekend retreats rather than homes. So that's when I always say when you're voguing out, you do not necessarily live in the system. You just want to go out there, have some fun, and kind of test yourself, get used to living out there for a short term, testing the shelter, right? So, in contrast, the living of the great people work the land, they live on the land, and they usually, the people who live off the grid, they don't have no way, not a place to go and retreat in case of an emergency. They're just going to stay there and face it. So we think in a different way. That's why we always talk about the plan B. When it comes to skills, preppers and living off the grid people are focused on learning survival skills such hunting and finding food and water in the wilderness, in the bushes, right? Pure preppers learn these skills in order to survive during a time of disaster. Living off the grid people, however, they learn these traditional skills as a way to maintain their self-sufficient lifestyles. So preppers will learn to hunt some skills just to use them when it's the time to use them in case of a survival. Living off the grid people, that's the way they live, because they technically surviving every day with the harvest, with the rainwater. So because that's the way it is. So it's different. Off the grid living, both prepper and living off the grid people are intrigued with off the grid living. Not being independent or from public utilities is an advantage for both groups, right? The only things that we preppers is a short term. With living off the grid people is a long term. It's going to be forever because they're changing their life. We're not changing our life. We're just preparing ourselves. So when it comes to security, preppers and living off the grid people may have guns, but there are differences between us. Preppers are aimed to be ready for a doomsday scenario. They might store large amount of weapons and ammunition in effort to protect themselves from looters and other criminals. However, living off the grid generally use their guns for hunting and protection from wild animals. So it's a totally different mindset when it comes to guns. Now I'm going to be talking about medical needs. Medical needs, since preppers are planning ahead for a huge event that could affect hospitals and medical services, they often purchase and storage large amounts of first aid and medical supplies. They also learn about natural remedies for emergency situations. Living off the grid people also educate themselves on natural remedies, and many grow medicinal herbs. Living off the grid people do not stockpile medical supplies beyond what they will need for normal life training situations. However, this is when it comes in differences. So there can be two types of living off the grid people. There can be people who have to trade with the system in order to get some stuff that they cannot grow or harvest. And some of these people, they might have issues, medical issues with kidneys, heart, cancer, you name it. So they have to find a way to earn a source of income to trade for medical treatments into the society. So there can be two types of living off the grid people, but it's one type of prepper. So lifestyle is very important. People who are concerned solely with prepping aim to store enough food and supplies to last during a disaster, but otherwise they might lead a normal life. In fact, you might not be able to distinguish a pure prepper from a non-prepper, unless you see the long-term storage pantries. So, living off the grid, on the other hand, are seeking for more natural lifestyle. They might live in a small home, in a small piece of land, or they might have live in a large home on a large piece of land, but are learning to rely less on others and more on themselves. Living off the grid people requires to they have to have a different mindset from the norm day. Living off the grid seek to grow their own produce and raise their own livestock. They learn to build and fix things by themselves. They make money for things they cannot make themselves by selling items they raise or make on their home. So what basically I'm saying is that it's two kinds of living off the grid. The guy who just cut off from the system, and then the other people who just got off from the system, but they're still trading with the system for medical supplies, for a cell phone, for Netflix, who knows. So you gotta remember, we both different, even though there are places that we kinda convene and then we kinda agree to each other, but prepper is a lifestyle in between your social environment. Living off the grid is a person who want to be out of the social environment and make life by themselves. But again, it can be two types. So there we go. If you have any questions, you can put your comments below. I'm going to leave a link below to my website. I'm going to put a couple of links on my channel over here and here about my next videos or my past videos. If you have any comment, if you have any suggestion, just feel free to contact me, text me, email me, leave a comment below. I'm trying to grow the channel. If you have something that you want to be featured in my future videos, I'm all for it. So thank you for your support. Share the video with others. Remember to check the links over here. And thank you for your support, and see you all there. Thank you.